On this week's episode of Amari Purple Talk, my reaction to the acoustic demo of I Feel For You, what should a Purple Rain Super Deluxe include, and, ladies and gentlemen, the time. Amari Purple Talk starts now. Welcome to episode 9 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, your imagination funk soloist, and I want to start by thanking everyone that has tuned in. I hope you're enjoying the show. Please leave your comments on the show below or on my website, www.amaricommunications.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Amari_now and on Instagram at RichardCole_Amari. And with that out of the way, we're going to dive into our first topic. And our first topic is the I Feel For You acoustic demo reaction. So on October 18th, the Prince estate, to the surprise of everyone, dropped a demo of Prince's I Feel For You, which is a song that's featured on the second Prince album, which is self-titled Prince, of course, and probably one of my favorite songs on that album. We're going to actually discuss the album a little while because the 19th was also the 40th anniversary of that album's release. So we'll dive into that a little while longer. But again, out of nowhere, first it debuted on YouTube and then it hit all the other streaming services much later. There's an acoustic demo. It's just Prince, just an acoustic guitar, doing a run through of I Feel For You. So I had a chance to listen to it, and I like it. Apparently, this is going to be a 7-inch single, what we used to call back in the day 45s. So this will be a 45 single, 7-inch release of I Feel For You, the acoustic version. The demo, that will be the A side. The B side will be the actual studio recording of the track from the second Prince album. So again, like I said, I had a chance to really listen to the song, the demo, and I like it a lot. Again, you know, we don't know what stage of the demo that this was recorded in, at least I don't anyway, but as you remember me speaking about the International Lover Take 1, my reaction to that track and just how much of the song is already there in its completed stage, I feel the same way about this one. A lot of it's already there. I might have to listen to it again to see if there's any subtle differences, maybe with the word or lyric here and there that's different from what actually ended up on the recording. But from my initial listens, everything is pretty much there. And, just another amazing testament to just how talented of a songwriter that Prince, was. So, looking forward to, I don't know, I think I might want to get the 7-inch single on this one when it's released. I know we're kind of caught up in the hype of, we have the Beautiful Ones book that's coming out. We're still anticipating the 1999 Super Deluxe edition. So for something like this to drop out of nowhere, and also honoring the 40th anniversary of one of Prince's classic period albums, I think it's a pretty good novelty to have. It's a good collector's item to have. So, I might go ahead and pick this one up as well and just kind of add that to the collection. I know since my sort of reuniting with vinyl over the last few years, I really haven't paid much attention to 45s. I know initially I dug up some old 45s a couple of years ago and just kind of started playing those again. But I've been gravitating more towards, the good old 33 1/3 long players on that. But yeah, this might be something that would lead me back to looking back into collecting 45s again. So, and you can tell my age, I'm saying 45s. To you young folks out there, it's the 7-inch single. So, yeah, that would probably be my gateway back to getting back into collecting 7-inch singles again. So, that's my reaction to the I Feel For You single. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. And we're going to end the first topic, and then we're going to jump into our second topic, which is what should a Purple Rain Super Deluxe include? All right. So I was thinking about this earlier in the week because, like I said, I'm excited for the 1999 Super Deluxe. I do have the Purple Rain Deluxe Edition, the CD. I enjoy it. It's not really something that I dig out a lot, except maybe for disc 2, and that's the one that just has all the unreleased vault material on it. And then I'll gravitate towards disc 3 and listen to a lot of the extended mixes of Let's Go Crazy, Erotic City. I listened to 17 Days on that. Haven't been in a real heavy mood to listen to Purple Rain, the album. I know sometimes I'll go on social media, I'll notice certain sites, and probably the reason why I'm looking at this as a topic is seems to be a lot of disappointment in regards to the Purple Rain Deluxe Edition that was released in 2017. I won't dive too much into the criticisms. I know as far as how it was mastered, Prince, along with Joshua Welton, did the actual 2017 remaster for this collection. I have, what is it? I think it's the 2015 of the Purple Rain vinyl. I can't remember when that was released, but I bought it much later. And that particular mix or remaster is a Bernie Grudman remaster, to which a lot of people prefer. Bernie Grudman mastering has been in business for several decades. They're among the best in the business as far as mastering a CD or albums. It's not an easy process, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of work, a lot of time goes into perfecting the sound of a master recording. So, like I said, I won't get into a heavy discussion on what constitutes a master recording, but like I said, there was a lot of disappointment regarding that aspect of the release. As far as the unreleased material, as well as a song choice, that was a sort of a bone of contention for some people. Certain tracks, though they were recorded in that 83, 84 period, definitely songs that were not considered for the movie or the album by any stretch of the imagination. So there was a lot of discussion regarding what songs should go on a Purple Rain Deluxe. So with this topic, I'm just going to give my ideas for a Purple Rain Super Deluxe Edition. Pretty much inspired by the sort of Beatles 50th anniversary editions of Sgt. Pepper, the White Album, and Abbey Road. So once Sony, actually in this particular case, Purple Rain is going to always be owned by Warner Brothers since it's originally a soundtrack album. But I do anticipate a time when that the estate and Sony will probably work out some type of a deal with Warner Brothers to do something for maybe a 50th anniversary for Purple Rain. And now that's kind of far off in the future. At minimum, maybe a 40th anniversary release. Because enough time would have passed to where Sony does regain a lot of the classic period material after 2021. So Anyway, this is my idea for a Purple Rain Deluxe, Super Deluxe Edition. So we're going to start with the CD1, first disc, which would be, of course, what I'm calling the definitive remaster of the album. So whoever, say Warner Brothers and the estate agree on who should facilitate that, then with this, whenever this would ever be released, this would be the actual definitive remaster of the Purple Rain album. Disc 2, my idea would be vault items of alternate and extended versions of the songs that are actually on the Purple Rain album. So if you have something like, for instance, say Let's Go Crazy, then on this disc you would include the extended version of Let's Go Crazy and possibly maybe some alternate version or earlier take of the song. You would also have, say, long versions of Computer Blue, the definitive long version of The Beautiful Ones. That's something that's sort of a holy grail at this stage for collectors to have an official release of that track. So disc 2 would contain vault items related to the tracks that are on the Purple Rain album itself, whether extended versions, earlier versions, different takes, alternate mixes, that sort of thing. Disc 3 would contain vault items recorded during the Purple Rain recording dates, and these are songs that were either considered for the Purple Rain album that of course didn't make it, or they ended up in, say, the on recordings by certain proteges. And in this one, I would also include B-sides, where you would have, say, the long version of Erotic City, and another Holy Grail item, which would be the long version of 17 Days. That's something I have yet to hear myself. I've seen people online that either have it or have heard it, and it's something that I would be looking forward to finally hearing one day. So that would be disc 3. So again, vault items recorded during the Purple Rain recording sessions. Again, songs that were intended for the album but didn't make it. Either they ended up as B-sides or they ended up elsewhere, whether it was a protege act or a different Prince album somewhere down the line, or even something we've never even heard before. So now we go to disc 4. And disc 4 would include, and this is just my opinion, it would include the August 3rd, 1983 First Avenue show. Now, I've done an episode of Amari Purple Talk where I've discussed both the possibility of this concert being released as a single CD and also when the documentary of this particular concert would ever be released as well. With this one, was a benefit show for a dance company. I don't have the details of the notes in front of me now, but this recording is significant, or this concert was significant because this debuted I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, and Purple Rain. The live versions of these ended up on the Purple Rain album, for those that aren't familiar with the history of this, or the significance of it. So including this in a super deluxe edition. Now remember, we're talking a possible 40th anniversary, 50th anniversary, or letting enough time go by to where you would release something like this to sort of phase out the original deluxe edition. So my ideas for a super deluxe for Purple Rain would be to try to make this as complete as possible. So disc 4 would include the August 3rd First Avenue benefit concert, which includes the recordings of I Would Die For You, Baby I'm a Star, and Purple Rain that ended up on the Purple Rain album, of course, with overdubs and little tweaking here and there in the mix. So that's disc 4. Disc 5 would be the best live recording from the Purple Rain tour. So you have items such as the Prince and the Revolution Live, that was the DVD. There is also a show from Atlanta, I believe, from 1985, from that same tour. That would make a great addition. In fact, as I'm saying this now, I'll hold this thought until I get into disc 6. So, but as far as a sound recording, just a CD, added to this Super Deluxe edition, the best live recording of the Purple Rain tour. So, whatever city, recorded professionally, all you have to do is go in, mix it up, master it well, include that as your 5th disc. So now from that, we're going to move to disc 6, which is actually a DVD Blu-ray. So with this, a DVD Blu-ray of Purple Rain movie with a new documentary and deleted scenes, if there are any available. If anything that's on the cutting room floor that survived, that you can kind of clean up and add it to this. Or you can add the Prince and the Revolution Live DVD. If you can, make it, ultra high def or high definition, if you can just clean it up a little bit more and add that along with the Purple Rain film. And then the next DVD Blu-ray, or actually, let me backtrack to the DVD with the Purple Rain movie. So if you can include a new documentary, if you have enough room, Purple Rain movie, Prince and the Revolution Live, or that 1985 Atlanta show. Actually, I'm leaning more towards the Atlanta show because it'd be a great, I think from things I've seen on YouTube, the video seems a little bit better than the Prince and the Revolution Live, if I'm not mistaken. So I would say just kind of substitute that DVD. If there's a way you can include both, make it an 8th disc. But just because we're talking Prince, I just limited the disc count to 7. So anyway, so number 6 would be a DVD Blu-ray Purple Rain movie with documentary, deleted scenes, or Prince and the Revolution Live from the 1985 VHS release, or 1985 Atlanta show. Now we're going to move on to a DVD Blu-ray that would contain a 5.1 surround sound of the definitive Purple Rain remaster, a Dolby Atmos mix or master of the definitive Purple Rain remaster that would be part of this collection, plus the somewhat unpopular Paisley Park 2017 remaster. Now, for me, I didn't have any ill will towards the 2017 remaster. Like I said, because Purple Rain was recorded with vinyl intended, I tend to lean more towards the vinyl. But I didn't really have any major problems with the 2017 remaster that was done at Paisley Park. Maybe some subtle nuances that my ears were used to hearing from the vinyl, for the last nearly 40 years or so. But like I said, I don't have a problem with it. But I would say just to have a complete definition of the Purple Rain experience, this would be my recommendation to the estate, to include all of these items in one big package. It could be, don't necessarily have to go overboard with the packaging, just a simple box. Not a simple box, but a very decorative box. Like I said, my inspiration for coming up with this list is based on the 50th anniversaries of, again, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. They would probably lean more in scope to that, because that's set, because the album cover was so colorful. There was a booklet, or not even a booklet, it was a book that's included with that. So I would include a book, really nice, well-written, not necessarily 100% liner notes, but something that documents the history. So something that documents the importance of the movie, the importance of the recording sessions. Then you would have detailed liner notes documenting that. And then, of course, add some introductions for some key people involved with the film. You can have Morris Day, you can have Apollonia, you can have, say, Albert McNolly, the director. Maybe not too many introductions, but just enough to make, just to kind of weigh it up a bit. And like I said, make this something of a book that really documents the history of that period. So that is my recommendation for a future Purple Rain Super, maybe Super Ultimate Deluxe. Could be 50th anniversary. I know it's a long time, so we need to eat our vegetables, work out, exercise, stay healthy, and make it to the 50th anniversary for that. Like I said, at minimum, a 40th anniversary edition. But something I would definitely like to see happen at some point. So what do you guys think? What would your ideas be for a Purple Rain Deluxe set? So Super Deluxe set. So leave a comment below. And with that, we're going to end this topic, and we're going to move on to our third and final topic before we dive into the album Flashback. And that third and final topic is the time deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I was going through Facebook one day and ran across, how you have your memories. Yeah, you know how it is on Facebook. You on this day, 6 years ago, 9 years ago. Well, on October 16th, 2013, I shared a post from Jesse Johnson. And this post said the time for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The time should be nominated for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Every one of the time recordings are in the millions of copies sold category. We were also influential regarding our style, look, music, sound, and dance. And that's excluding individual achievements, record sales, etc. Just saying, right? So I'm going over this memory from Jesse Johnson's post from 2013. And I'm like, yeah, the time should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And if you see my Instagram, and I mean, great, you guys are like, when I post stuff on Facebook promoting the show, and a lot of the responses that I get, it's like, thank you, for everything. Because, yeah, I know I say, post questions to my website, send me Twitter questions, that type of thing. But it seems to be the most significant response has been through Facebook. So the different Prince pages that I follow on Facebook. Again, like I said, thank you for the response. So I posted a graphic sort of similar to the in-show graphics that I use to promote the show also. Just saying that the time deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the response, for the most part, has been overwhelmingly positive. And then there's a few that aren't so positive. Now, because of, the overwhelming yay and the sort of, negative responses on the other end, and also, too, I kind of started just a teeny weeny campaign to say, yeah, the time deserved to be in the Hall of Fame. Like I said, I've tagged the different time members. I've hashtagged them as well. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah, and I really think that this band should be in the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And like I said, too, there's other places where I've posted my in-show graphic saying that they should be in. Like I said, a lot of overwhelmingly positive response. And, of course, as expected, some not so nice responses, too. And a couple of, and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in itself is very controversial. So some of the negative comments or some of the comments that have been not so encouraging, it's forced me to do a little bit more research because, yeah, I'm aware of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame pretty much since it started. And, I've read things like Rolling Stone and, every year they have who's, inducted for that year. So since its inception, of course, starting with that very first induction ceremony way back in the 80s, of course, you have your heavy hitters. You have your Chuck Berry. You have Little Richard. You have Elvis. And I think there is sort of misconception of what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is, who should be in it. Now, the people I've just mentioned, where it's Chuck Berry, Elvis, the Beatles, Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix, Prince, those are mainly nominees in what's called the performance category. I almost like to call it I would think they should change it to like the legends category. But I think there is a misconception, especially amongst people that are sort of the Debbie Downers for wanting the time in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, is that, well, yes, the time they're great, but they're not Prince. And then some of the comments that I've seen is like, well, Prince, he's already in there. He's the one that wrote the songs and produced them and came up with the whole thing. Okay, we're not saying that Prince is excluded, or we're not saying, I'm not saying the time should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to spite Prince. Now, remember, I'm doing a Prince podcast. So Prince will always, first and foremost, be the central figure of this podcast. But one other thing, folks, the time, the original 7, Morris Day, Jesse Johnson, Jelly Bean Johnson, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Monty Moore, Jerome Benton, that lineup, that is my favorite band. And everybody has a favorite band. And music is subjective. Just like, movies, books, anything that you like is subjective. So what I like, you may not like, and that's cool. And then what you like, I might not like. But for me, if because there was one person that posted, well, I think the Three Dog Night should be more deserving, and I responded with that. Both are deserving to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, I mean, you know, granted, Three Dog Night sold X millions of records. The time has had a combined total of 5 albums, of which 3, arguably 4 of those albums are legendary albums. And not just within sort of the Minneapolis context. So, in the weeks to come, I'm going to create a special Time Deserves to Be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for YouTube, where I'm going to do a little more research and just go in depth and, like I said, really campaign as a fan why I think this band deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But first, I'm going to go over some very brief tidbits of information on what the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is and the different categories, of which quite a few of these fit the argument why the time should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So first, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it documents the history of rock music and the artists, producers, engineers, and other notable figures who have influenced its development. So the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it was started by Ahmet Ertegun. He was the founder and chairman of Atlantic Records. So it was started as a foundation in 1983. The museum itself was dedicated in 1995. So I'm just going to go over some of the categories. Now, I mentioned earlier the performers category. And again, that one usually goes to who they feel are the legends. Now, whenever you've watched the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think it's on HBO now. Originally was on VH1. Originally they were privately filmed. I don't know where they were airing in the 80s or the 90s. But I was aware of it first on VH1. That was where when Prince was inducted in 2004. And recently, I don't watch it every year, but I catch it on HBO every now and then. So I think that's where its current home is. But regardless of that, what you see on that program, that's the benefit the so-called legends. And part of the controversy with that is the people that are nominated, or certain artists that are nominated, it's because it's ratings, it's tickets, it's money. So part of the controversy with the rock and roll is that. But primarily, the performers, the legends, your Elvis, your Michael Jackson, your Prince, your Beatles, Bob Dylan, Jimi Hendrix, whoever. That's the performers category. There's also categories for singers, vocal groups, bands, and instrumentalists of all kind. So here's a quick tidbit. Again, some of the criticism, well, Prince did everything, so why should they be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Well, Smokey Robinson. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame. But in 2012, the Miracles were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Smokey wrote all of the songs. He wrote most of the songs. And it did go from the Miracles in their early records to Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. Smokey Robinson, the greatest songwriter, in my opinion, and Bob Dylan's favorite poet, by the way. Name me some miracles. They were inducted in 2012. We know James Brown, the Godfather, Soul Brother #1. He was one of the first inductees into the Hall of Fame. 2012, the Famous Flames. And if you know your James Brown, you know who I'm talking about. They were inducted. Bill Haley, again, one of the first inductees. One hit, Rock Around the Clock. I'll give a little bit of credit to Shake, Rattle, and Roll, but that was Louis Jordan's song first. But the Comets, remember? Bill Haley and the Comets, they were inducted 2012. And I can go on, but like I said, I'm saving that for the YouTube special on that. But the reason why I'm bringing that up is because in 2012, there was a special committee created due to controversial exclusions when the lead singer was inducted. Now, I know some of you are going to be, why would that say lead singers? Well, Morris Day is the lead singer of The Time. And that's his voice that's on those Time recordings. Yeah, Prince is in the background somewhere. Yeah, he wrote most of the songs. But Morris Day was on that drum kit through 90% of it. And it's a co-producer's credit. And this wasn't one of those Prince being nice and generous co-credits. This was a legitimate collaboration between the two. So again, and if you're going to induct Morris Day, then as far as, like in the words of George Clinton, let's take it to the stage. Again, Morris Day, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Jesse Johnson, Monty Moore, Jelly Bean Johnson, Jerome Benton. They were on that stage. They were putting in work. And guess what, boys and girls? If you are a session musician, which means that you're not on the record covers, you're barely a name on the album cover, but everybody knows you play guitar, whether it was in that studio, guess what? You can be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If you're a Susan Rogers tweaking that microphone, if you're a Jeff Emmerich, who was the Beatles engineer that did those groundbreaking engineering techniques on Revolver, Sgt. Pepper, guess what? You get to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Oh, by the way, if you're on tour and you're the bass player, you're the drummer, you're just a saxophone player. You know, so-and-so in Iowa doesn't know your name. They came to see whoever the star was, the person out in front. Now, of course, we're all Prince fans. We can name every single member of the Revolution, New Power Generation. We can name every single member of the Time, whatever. Guess what, boys and girls? They're eligible to be in the Hall of Fame. So it doesn't matter. Don't have to be the legendary performer out front. That's the big award. If you are a musician, whether you're a studio musician, whether you're a stage musician, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a record producer, oh, guess what, boys and girls? If you are a disc jockey, Tom Joyner can be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So with that being said, this is the beginning of my personal campaign to one day see, and I'm hoping for 2021, that the original 7 members of the Time be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So you can comment below whether you're for or against. Remember, music is subjective. What I love, you may not like. What you love, I may not like. But that's cool. I can respect your point of view. and understand what it means to you. And that's the most important thing. So, like I said, I'm going to do a deeper dive with this with a YouTube special. Like I said, I'll probably work on it within the next few weeks. But that's going to end this topic. And now we're going to move on to our album Flashback. And that album Flashback is simply called Prince. It was his second studio album for Warner Brothers, and it was released 40 years ago, October 19th, 1979. And for me, this was because 1979, disco had kind of went on kind of a little bit of cruise control and was kind of at the beginning stages of kind of being tired to a lot of folks, mainly your so-called rock and roll crowd, or your what they call now your classic rock crowd. But the funk was still going strong. I mean, Parliament Funkadelic was still doing its thing. Chic with Nile Rodgers, even though they're associated with disco, they were still going strong. I remember for the summer of '79, my two go-to albums were Parliament's Motor Booty Affair and Sister Sledge's We Are Family album. So those were the two big ones for me. Earlier that year, the first 45s I bought, the Jacksons, Shake Your Body Down to the Ground, Rufus and Shaka Khan, Do You Love What You Feel, and the Bee Gees, Too Much Heaven. Those were the first 45s, 7-inch singles to you younger kids out there. The first 45s that I bought with my own money. I was like 13 then. Like I said, the Jackson's Destiny album, that was on constant rotation for me. Funkadelics, One Nation Under Groove was still in heavy rotation for me, but Knee Deep was, right around the corner for me with that too. So then later that year, 1979, you had Michael Jackson's Off the Wall. And that's where I was. That's sort of my lane for 1979. And I have an uncle, kind of one of my big influences musically. Did a lot as a DJ, record critic. So he had access to a lot of albums. And I remember a family get together and he shows me this album, which was the second Prince album. And this kind of leads into sort of my, sort of gateway to Prince, although it was not this album, ironically. But yeah, he tried to convince me that this was the greatest album on earth, and I did not want to be bothered with it. I didn't like the way the record cover looked. I didn't like the sound of it, anything. It was like, nah, because the selling point was that, nah, he's better than Michael Jackson. And I'm like, get out of here. And it's like, no, you got to listen to it. I don't like the record cover. That you got to listen to it. Got to have an open mind. I'm like, yeah, right. And he played it, and I'm like, no way this is better than Michael Jackson. But fast forward about 2 years. So yeah, fast forward to about 1981, and a neighbor of mine down the street. Now that the Christmas before, I got like a Panasonic component set. It was a real pretty decent component set, nice for what it was. And it had the, of course, the turntable. It had an 8-track, folks. And it also had a cassette built into it as well. So you could record your albums or whatever. You can even record the 8-tracks then. It was pretty nice. I had it for a few years. And eventually it wore itself out. But I don't know, maybe after about 10, 15 years it wore itself out. But anyway, this neighbor, what he would do, he would borrow albums from other people, then bring them to my house and then tape them and then return the albums back. So this particular day, it was close to summer, I think, 1981. But this particular day, he brought over Prince's Dirty Mind album and Tina Marie's Irons in the Fire album. So, long story short, the Dirty Mind album was my gateway into Prince. So, after that, I think a few weeks later, then he borrowed the second Prince album over to tape. And so by then I was hooked. So I had a blank tape. So I was able to, record it. And then listen to it with a brand new set of ears. So it was then that I got into the songs. Because it's like, of course, Dirty Mind is the progression. But when you go back, it's like, man, this is pretty good too. And then, of course, like I said, right around this time, I think maybe Controversy was out by then. So I was really hooked. At least the single anyway. I don't think the album was out. But definitely hooked with the single. Like, okay, yeah, I'm a fan of this guy now. So there was going back to listening to the second album. So it was just hearing that progression. You can hear elements of, it's starting to develop a sound. It's still more commercial R&B sound. Dirty Mind was the progression, but things like where, Sexy Dancer, you can hear sort of the, maybe a little Rick James influence, which I've read in other books that was the song that led Rick James to have Prince open for him during that tour. But also, too, you also hear these elements of the time. It's that DNA of the time, and basically the time was Prince's outlet to do more R&B, where Prince himself wanted to be known for doing everything. He didn't want to be pigeonholed. But yeah, so that DNA for, what would be on the Time records or even some of Prince's funkier stuff too. That DNA is right there. I Want to Be Your Lover, the lead single. For me, I just like the album because that was my first time hearing the album version of that. Where, like I said, I know my uncle played me the track, but believe me, trust me, that initial listen didn't make it through the long version. It was just like, take it off. I don't want to hear it. But going back 2 years later and really listening to it as a fan now, then definitely that was that was something great to listen to. It was his first major seller. It only made like number 22 on the pop charts, and I think like number 3 on the R&B charts. But like I said, it's an artist in growth. Sometimes you're lucky enough to get in, say, that artist's first album, second album, and then you just ride it all the way to the top. If they go all the way to the top, or, consistently, this is your go-to underground artist, and it's for you, haha, no pun intended. But but that's a great memories for that for me. Like I said, I Want to Be a Lover, the long version. Like I said, when my friend borrowed it, and we're making our tapes of it, and and he's hyping the songs. He kind of hyped them better than my uncle hyped the songs in 2 years prior. So it's like, oh man, check this out. Why you want to treat me so bad? Listen to that guitar at the end, and of course, Sexy Dancer was funky. When We're Dancing Close and Slow, it's like, man, that's deep, man. He's deep. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. It didn't sound like anything anybody else was doing. Then you flip it over now, With You. Even to this day, it's not one of my favorite songs. It sounds a little country to me, but having watched Ken Burns' documentary on country music, I have a deeper appreciation for country music. But as far as just judging this as a Prince song, it's never really been one of my favorites. I kind of like his version slightly over Jill Jones' version. I like the rest of the Jill Jones album, and that's sort of the least favorite song on there for me. And I'm sorry, I know that's her song, or she loved that song enough to cover it. But I don't hate it. It's just just like, okay, there's certain times I can sit down and really listen to it and go, okay, yeah, I get it. It's a nice song, but I'm ready to move to the next one. Speaking of which, I mean, there's Bambi again. That's another one. You know, my friend's like, man, listen to what he's saying. Oh, that's deep. Man, it's deep. And the guitar is just rock. You know, because where we lived at the time, growing up, there's how we got into rock. I mean, radio stations weren't quite as segregated. There was one in the early 70s, KWK, that played a lot of R&B, but they also played like a lot of rock too. A lot of, again, what's known as classic rock now. So, but, and then there's guys that had like maybe an older brother that was deep off into some Led Zeppelin or something like that. And that's how, we would fall in. Had another friend on the opposite side of the street. Like I said, I was always big into Parliament Funkadelic anyway, but he was the one that hit me to the Westbound era Funkadelic as well. So, Earth, Wind, and Fire was everywhere at the time. So, that's kind of Stevie Wonder. That's kind of where we live. Rick James, that was hardcore for us, so that was heavy funk too. So to hear kind of like, somebody like that wasn't Parliament Funkadelic doing that. And again, in reference to that and the time, who says a funk band can't play rock? So there you have it with Bambi. So that's still one of my favorites. I like even the Third Eye Girl version video. I remember buying that download for that. Still Waiting is a good song. And let's see, I Feel For You. Oh, I still enjoy that album track. I mean, everybody, hypes up the Shaka Khan version, and that's sort of become the most famous version. But for me, I do like that version a lot, but just give me the album. So it's like if I put on the album, and I'm going through the whole journey, side A into side B, and I know the album's getting ready to come to an end, yeah, that's the one that's kind of like the seventh inning stretch on that one. You kind of just like, okay, yeah, this has been a great album, and this is the second to the last track, and it's about to come to an end. And speaking of which, yeah, It's Gonna Be Lonely is a nice, really great ballad. And, a lot of, critics, would say since Adore, he had become more of a mature songwriter in regards to his ballads. But, hell, even the early ones, they're still good. They're still nice to listen to. Everybody has a starting point, Do Me Baby, and then they go up from there, or it's Adore, and they kind of go up from there. But, some of there's an appeal to some of the early ones. It's, again, if you compare Prince to, say, in this case, say like the Beatles, again, and I don't know why I'm doing air quotes all the time when I say this, but classic rock folks, when it comes to the Beatles, it's mainly that Sgt. Pepper, White Album, Abbey Road kind of period where it's like, they want to pretend like the early stuff doesn't exist, but you can't ignore it, and even the early stuff is just as great. And that's the same with Prince. It's like, well, yeah, there's Dirty Mind, and there's, Controversy, 1999, and this progression, up until whenever you say his classic period ends, whether it's Sign of the Times or Love Sexy or Batman or Graffiti Bridge, depending on, what your point of view is his classic period. But, it's kind of that comparison with the Beatles where the early stuff is just as great. So it's nice to put on an early album like this one and kind of just enjoy it. And especially if you were around in 1979. It doesn't matter whether you were 13 like I was or slightly older. it's just nice to put on and just kind of remember. I don't want to get all old and nostalgic and say a simpler time, but it's just nice to go back and reminisce every once in a while. But don't forget to enjoy the here and now as well. So, but what do you guys think? Do you have any special memories of that album? Were you around in 1979 and, remember hearing it in real time? Or, were you somebody kind of like me, even though I was experiencing it in real time with that particular album, there was a 2-year delay. So, do you have any fond memories of it? Let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. And that's going to end the album Flashback. And now we're going to move to our project wish list. And lots of deluxe editions. This is our super deluxe day, it seems like, on Amari Purple Talk. And today's project wish list is going to be a controversy deluxe edition. Maybe not a super deluxe. Yeah, I know anything up until maybe 1982. You probably wouldn't be able to do a super deluxe, but at least you can probably do a CD and some extras. So, again, our project wish list every week. I just come up with either a zany idea for what the estate should put out as, in this case, a classic album, what a deluxe edition should be, kind of similar to the Purple Rain from earlier topic. Or it could be a legendary vault album, something sort of like Dream Factory, for an example. Or, just something off the top of my head, like, I think the estate should do something like this, and we all have those. I've seen online different suggestions for things, whether it's a classic album, like, you should include this song or that song, or I haven't gotten too deep into that on this show. Maybe as things kind of progress a bit, maybe some of the special editions, future special editions I do for YouTube may kind of, make those suggestions, what could happen. Like I said, the estate will do what it wants to do, and I mean, they've been doing an amazing job, sort of starting with the second half of this year and things moving forward. So anticipating a lot of stuff that'll be coming out in the future. But like I said, these are just my ideas for what certain projects should be. And hopefully if they're listening, maybe just jot down some notes and, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have similar ideas or even better ideas. Like I said, I'd, like to see them, share them on this site and share them with the world, make sure they hear about it as well. So anyway, getting back. So Controversy Deluxe Edition. What should that include? Well, for me, again, I always go for your first disc being that sort of definitive, state-of-the-art, remastered version of the original album. And with a lot of these, that's mainly what I'm a fan of, especially, you're talking about things originally intended for vinyl, and we live in a different age, whether it's CD or streaming, this digital age where, the sound quality is, that was the selling point of CDs, was that, the sound quality was supposed to be so pristine. And there were very few, when you look back, very few CDs at that time that could lay that claim. One album in particular, and it's not a Prince album, but one album in particular is the Dire Straits' Brothers in Arms. That was probably the first album, well, maybe not the first, but as far as the sound quality matching the claims of what they were selling CDs to be, which was the replacement of vinyl in terms of sound quality, that album is the go-to. So you can buy an original CD pressing from, I think, 1985, and it holds up just as well. So, even with any remastered versions that are out now. So for me, like I said, whether it's Prince, the Beatles, or Hendrix, or something like that, where you had this pristine sound quality where they put a lot of time and care into making the best vinyl sound possible for those days. Transferring to CD, that's what I'm interested in. Now, as far as, extras, like I said, I'm getting more into Frank Zappa, more into Bob Dylan and their vaults and things. And, there's, of course, unreleased songs, and you hope most of them are unreleased finished songs or finished enough to where they're, complete beginning to end songs. But, there's a lot of unreleased stuff where, okay, this is take 35, this is take 1. And those are interesting for me. In the case of the Beatles, it's, some of the studio chatter is more interesting than the take itself in that particular. But, again, just wanting to be a completist or a collector, those things interest me as well. So, but getting with Prince, there's a lot of stuff that, we feel it's finished. A lot of stuff we've been hearing, they're finished songs, or, even if they need a tweak here in the mix, or maybe it needed an overdub and, well, can't get one now, but, those are interesting as well. So I'm more like into the unreleased full songs than, oh, this is take 52. And, it goes somewhere and then it breaks into laughter or something like that. But other than that, definitely the remastered CD. In this case, the second disc or whatever should be, singles, B-sides, extended versions. Like I said, I know the earlier stuff I'm not well versed on, so I'm not sure how you could weigh it up, like, and say this is a Controversy Super Deluxe Edition. And again, I'm sure there's surprises, but a Super Deluxe Edition for Controversy would probably be different than a Super Deluxe Edition, say, of 1999 or Purple Rain. So, whatever relative material from the vault, from that's relevant to that period, definitely include that. So that would probably be your second disc. Third disc, of course, your best recording of something live from that tour. And for your DVD, I would include the sort of legendary Second Coming film. For those that aren't aware of that, the Second Coming was sort of early version of Purple Rain, not in terms of story, but this was intended really almost, had it been completed, this would have been Prince's first film. And basically it would have been more of a concert film, I believe. I don't have a reference. I've honestly have never seen Stop Making Sense by the Talking Heads, and that's supposed to be one of the greatest concert films ever. So I may have to sit down and watch that one day. So I don't know what that, if it's a complete concert with a story, but just kind of my initial gut feeling is saying that, like the Second Coming was kind of along the lines of something like that in terms of scope. Like I said, it's unfinished, but I would include it. Definitely, because I don't know if there would be necessarily if you could sell it as a single DVD, but I would bundle it with a Controversy Deluxe Edition. Because it seems to be the modus operandi of, you had the Purple Rain Deluxe that had the Princeton Revolution Live DVD, the Rave Into the Joy Fantastic reissue, and that included the Rave Into the Year 2000 DVD. So it seems to be where it's relevant, adding some sort of DVD to the package. That would be probably my best recommendation for Controversy Deluxe Edition, would be that Second Coming DVD. So, of course, again, first disc, remastered CD, second disc, any singles, and B-sides. Now, with that, Let's Work is probably my favorite 12-inch single, favorite extended version that's not She's Always in My Hair. So include that. That's one of my favorites. And what else? The B-side to that, Gotta Stop Messing About. That was a pretty dope track. Because I was, heavily into new wave. I mean, I like the Cars, the Police. I don't know. Those were sort of my two big groups. I'm, as a kid, late, being able to stay up late Saturday night, it would be the Three Stooges around midnight or so, and they would be on for like about an hour, I think hour and a half or something like that. And then right after that, and this is before MTV ever existed, there was Don Kirshner's rock concert. And a lot of those were performance pieces, but he would also show at the time with the, like the earliest music videos. Like I said, this is way before MTV. So I got to see, you'd see a lot of those groups that would come on. It'd be Tom Petty or something one week, the Pretenders. So I got exposed to all of those groups, staying up late on a Saturday night as a kid and watching that. So, Prince kind of picking up on that vein. And that was one of the things when I was listening to Dirty Mind that drew me into that, was that sort of new wave vibe. He had his funky vibe, but, that new wave also drew me in as a kid as well. So so that B-side was, I enjoyed that B-side. So I wore that 12-inch single out. So I'm gonna have to get another copy of that one. But definitely include that on the second disc. And like I said, a live CD of, again, best, whatever city that he was in, and it was recorded and it was on the soundboard. By all means, add that on as well, and add the Second Coming film to that as your DVD. So that's my idea for a Controversy Deluxe Edition. What do you guys think? What should be included? Hit me to some song titles in the comments below. If I don't already have it, then I'll try to look for it or read up on it and just go, yeah, okay. And if I do it like a special edition, recommendation or special edition on Controversy, I'll include that. So again, leave a comment below and let me know what's going on. So that's going to end this episode of Amari Purple Talk. Once again, thanks to everyone for tuning in. Again, leave your topic ideas or comments on my website, www.amaricommunications.com. Also, you can find me on Twitter at Amari_now. And also, too, thanks again to all the Prince pages that I follow on Facebook. Like I said, a lot of the responses have been coming through there. Like I said, I try to respond, try to like everything. And like I said, even the ones I disagree with, I'm glad you guys are responding too, because that just opens up the dialogue. And like I said, everything's subjective. So it's like, cool, I see your point of view of it, but this is also my point of view as well. And everything's cool. So again, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week. And again, keep it purple and on the one.